Hello, everybody, and welcome to Professor P's podcast. I'm Natasha Palumbo, aka Professor P. I'm known for evoking the essence of spirituality by bringing the energetic fire, activating the mind, and speaking the truth. I'm so honored that you are here with us today. I thank you for joining. This podcast is focused on entrepreneurship, empowerment, and energetics. You're going to find a wealth of information inside, guest speakers, and the Elixir, a dose of energetic power. So let us join in on today's podcast. Hello, everyone, and welcome to Professor P's podcast. I'm so excited that you're here with me today. I want to thank you for joining me. Thank you for your feedback, your love, your DMs, your messages. I am so honored and so grateful that you are enjoying the podcast and getting so much out of it. Today's topic I'm really excited to talk to you about, and that is identity. Identity, and the truth be told. Identity crisis and identity trauma is a very, very real thing. So according to Psychology Today, our identities encompass memories, experiences, relationships, and values. These components all help us create our identities and our sense of self. So the last couple of episodes, I've been having you work with limiting beliefs. The last episode, I went all the way in and grabbed every one that you had, and I hope that was freeing for you. I did hear messages that it was. But when we're stripping these things away, we're stripping away things in ourselves that we've carried for a long time that weren't ours. And it had become your identity. That's what happened. These limiting beliefs, these memories, experiences, relationships, they become our identity. And we all of a sudden don't know who even we are, right? And as human beings, we identify because it gives us purpose and a well-being in sorts. We have to have some type of identity to feel like we belong, you know? If we know how we define ourselves, then it's easier for us to communicate. It's easier for us to be in communities. It's easier for us to feel like we know what we're doing in our day. Identity can be a way to structure parts of our lives, to make choices, to make life more manageable. Do you understand that we choose our identity so many times in a way to have our life more manageable? Oh, there's so much to that. I don't know if I'm going to get to everything today, but I'm definitely going to try. I want you to really begin to think about what kind of identity do you have? And are you suffering from identity trauma or identity crisis? Now, mind you, it happens. It pops up so often, especially if you've had a traumatic event, right? After a traumatic event, physically, mentally, emotionally, you are impacted. Your identity is impacted. And then you begin to try to walk in this impacted identity of those experiences, and you are left at wondering who you really are. Any of you wondering who you really are? Let me see by the raise of hands. You know, this is my favorite part, to see out there who's raising their hands. Any of you sometimes question what am I? Who am I inside? Remember, the conditionings that have been placed on you are part of your identity. But do you really believe in those borrowed down, hand-me-down jackets that you're wearing? Are you ready for that tailor-fit suit that I ask you to come and get prepared for when you come in and hear me speak to you? It is so important to understand if you deal with low self-esteem, if you question your value or your worth, if you feel lost or aimless, if you feel like there's no sense of purpose to you or understanding of your values, if you feel emotionally scattered, if you feel insecure, if you are dealing with anxiety and depression, it is linked to identity crisis. In fact, science can back us up. Now, you know I love to throw a little science along the way, right? Studies have shown and found that identities are significantly more prevalent in people living with depression. Negative self-views are generally a consistent sign or symptom of depression. When your idea of yourself, including how you define yourself, this is identification for your identity, suffers, it is likely your mental health will suffer too. This is why I had you rip all of that away last week. It is why I am attacking limiting beliefs, because it is plaguing your identity. It is lingering there in your thought process. And again, as you know, and I've taught you, thought creates and crystallizes into form and creates the world before you. Ready? Here are some common causes of identity. Just see if you have some of these. A marriage, committing to a long-term relationship. I want to say, this is me acting a mess. First of all, let me pause here, acting a mess. You know what my superpower is? I'm single. No, listen, laugh out loud. I'm waiting for him. You all know that, right? I've already shared all that with you. Listen, box of beautiful prayers written. So waiting, but I'm single. And so I'm not identified to this long-term relationship other than that long-term investment and foreverness with God. And that's where I base my identity. It's rooted there, and I am not moved from it. At least I try not to be moved from that identity in Christ and in God, right? But common causes of identity crisis or a marriage or a long-term relationship, or guess what? A divorce or separation, because you became identified as a wife or identified as a partner or husband or identified as this, and now all of a sudden it's separate from you. It's no longer there. The loss of a loved one, a parent, a spouse, a child, a sibling, a family member, loved one, any friend. That is a traumatic event and will affect your identity and cause identity crisis. Moving, for sure, putting you in a whole new environment, resetting your stage of the pathways you drive and the people you see and the stores you shop at and the house you live in, all will change your identity. A traumatic event, any type of traumatic event, the pandemic. So this is what I always say. If you didn't think you had trauma and you've made it through 2020 and 2021 and 2022 tried. I mean, it's been okay over here, but it's tried, right? 2023 to 2030 is going to be hot, baby. So just remember I told you so. But if you've been through the pandemic and you're still here, you have trauma. Every last being now has trauma. Pandemic, trauma. So a traumatic event is going to reshape your identity. Losing a job, getting a new job, any physical illness. You know, I just put out the other day, I was like, I'm having this bad day. Has it been feeling a little off? What's going on? That's what I said to myself. I said, this day is just completely broken. What's happening? What's going on? And I love to run and I injured myself. So I have a new identity. I'm a runner. I still identify as a runner in my head. I want you all to know that. But I can barely walk sometimes. I walk with a limp now. I was running 10Ks. Running was everything to me. It was free therapy. I ran faithfully 3 to 4 times a week. I got all the way up. At one point, I ran 8 miles in one setting. This is from a woman who was 319 pounds. Do you hear me right now? Who got herself all the way down, lost over 100 pounds. Do you understand me? And built up her running to 8 miles and was faithful at 10Ks. Those are 6 miles, just a little over 6 miles. My identity was crushed as I began to slowly move from running 10Ks to now walking with a limp. Do you understand? Do you understand that a little identity crisis appeared itself for me? I was like, whoa, what happened to my runner? She's still in here and she's coming back even greater. That's what I said. I've now found out what's wrong. I injured myself is what happened 2 years ago. I heard a pop, and because I don't stop, it continued to just get worse as I continued to work out on it very, very hard, boxing, running, just everything. And of course it worsened, and I have a high tolerance for pain. Please take note to this. I have a high tolerance for pain because of my background and my traumatic experience. I have an identity, here it is, I'm showing you, of holding on to pain far too long. If you can resonate for me, I just need an amen right here or an ouch, whatever it is your preference. But I held on too long and I kept enduring the pain too long until I could not endure it no more. And I finally got to go to the doctor, and I finally know that I have torn my labrum and it needs surgical repair. And I finally get to go to the doctors and begin the process of finally getting this fixed. And my identity, guess what? Is going to go back to being that full-on runner. You understand? And anchoring into that. I'm not going to walk in this crisis of what has happened to me. So, any physical illness to tie me back here and continue on. Mental health issues. I just talked about it and I told you science backs it up. Mental health issues. If you retire, do you know how many people retire and have complete identity crisis? Why? Because they vested themselves in that matrix. They vested themselves in that job. And now they're retired and they're like, well, what am I going to do with myself? Please don't do that, my friends. Please don't do that. And last but not least, something that for sure will give you an identity crisis or alter your identity, having children. I am now responsible for other human beings. Me? I've done pretty well with mine. I would say they're okay. They're still alive. Shucks. Listen. So I want you to think about some of these things, and I want you to be aware that when you do go through some of these things, because you will change your job, you might lose your job, you might get married, you may become a person who gets divorced, unfortunately. You will lose somebody along this life's journey. I'm sorry. Please know my heart is with you, but this is what happens in this journey. We are born and we ascend, my friends, right? So these are things that will happen. I want you to get some homework now. I want to prepare you for some homework. I had you set last week and you're primed now because you started stripping away those limiting beliefs. And let me tell you something, if you didn't do that, I'm not even going to ask right now. You're just going to know that I'm thinking you did it already. But if you didn't, I want you to make sure you do. Yeah, okay, I'm talking to you. Make sure you didn't do it. Why didn't you do it? You didn't know? You will go back and listen and now you'll know. Okay. I want you to keep doing that. And I want you to find out really who you are. I always relate this to a famous movie too, and maybe you've seen it. It's called The Runaway Bride with Julia Roberts. I love Julia Roberts. And in The Runaway Bride, the reporter comes to report on her marriage. This is now like her fifth one coming up, and she continues to run. She's the runaway bride. So he comes into town and they begin to form this relationship. And he says to her, do you even know what type of eggs you like? Well, of course I do. And then she realizes she doesn't, because every man that she had had a relationship with, she identified with their eggs, the choice of eggs that they liked. She just said, I'll take two. Whew. How many of you have done that? How many have been like, oh yeah, okay, I like that too, because you like that, and not really known what type of eggs? So here's where you're going to start. If you don't know what type of eggs, I love my eggs over easy. Boom. That's my order. I love over easy eggs, and I'm confident in that. If you don't know really how you love your eggs because you have made the decision off of prior experiences or relationships, then I am encouraging you, like he did in The Runaway Bride, for you to go find out. And so in the end, it fast forwards because they build this relationship. They realize they actually like each other. And here comes this relationship, of course. And in the end, she says, my favorite type of eggs? Eggs Benedict. And he was like, oh. So she discovered. And so what she did, and what you see in the movie, is that you see her at a restaurant, at a cafe, and she's got all the different types of eggs around her. Every different way you can have eggs, and she has it around her, and she's tasting, and she realizes which one. So this is what I want you to think about. I need you to go out there and experiment in this life. I need you to go to the ultra limits of your life, the very edge of what you know. Do you understand me? That is where you will find the truest you yet. I need you to go and discover what you really like. I need you to set before you a menu of items and just decide which one you really identify with and like, and not that you're basing it off of somebody else's decision and your experience with them. I need you to pull off the layers of being a wife and a mother. I need you to pull off the layers of being a partner. I need you to pull off the layers of being a teacher, a worker, an employee, an entrepreneur. Whatever those layers off, I need you to rip them all the way off and root yourself deeply in God and the calling of God, because that's where the intrinsic value is. And then from that, you will birth every beautiful identity you've been called to in the land of the living. Do you understand me today? So here are some ways for you to cope. So your homework, before I go into coping, is I want you to set with this, and I want you to experiment and begin to try and think about really, what is your identity? Set with God and allow God to show you the beautiful gifts that are your true identity, because your gifts will make room for you and they are your identity. And the more me I am, the more money I make, baby. Do you understand me? And the more me I am and the more money I make, it's because I know who I am. I identify. My identity is anchored because here we go. I have learned to cope and learn to build my coping skills. I just said this recently on another podcast that I was on and so honored to be on, is that it's important to anchor yourself in your coping skills. That's what happens, because nobody's exempt of the crazy portal. We grow in our coping skills. You're going to ground yourselves in your values. So what I want you to do on your homework is I want you to list your highest values, at least 10 of them. And then I want you to mark the top 3. And then I want to circle the very top one. And I want you to hold that identity of that value at the highest frequency of possible. Again, list like 10, 20, let them go. Then star the top ones and then circle the very top one and hold the frequency there. You are not alone with this. Everybody experiences this. So I want you to ground in your values. I want you to hold awareness for those. I want you to deepen into your emotional intelligence. You have to give yourself permission to feel those feelings. Give yourself permission to be in the crazy portal without thinking that it's going to be there for forever. It's not. And don't beat yourself up because it happened. Just remember, we don't stay there. I want you to let yourself experience your emotions, increase your emotional intelligence, and then let them go. Free your feelings. You understand? Get in touch with your feelings. Feel it and free it. You can journal. You can write it out, right? By journaling, you can sing, you can walk, you can just hold space for it, and you can just let your tears leak from your face. I want you to create a mental fitness plan. If you find yourself with an identity crisis, it's time to ground yourself in a mental fitness practice. Are you making space for inner work? If you're listening to my podcast weekly, I want you to know that you're doing this work. This is inner work that we're after. And I want to thank you for showing up for yourself today. But make this a mental fitness activity weekly, that you come and listen here and you accent this with other podcasts, other mental fitness activities. This is what will heighten your life and grow your life, and you will deepen in this. You can always enlist a coach. And if you haven't reached out to me to get your free one-on-one session, please make sure you do. I am available for you. I've told you this. I'm available to pray for you. I'm available for you to get a discovery call with me. But find yourself an accountability partner, a good coach to hold space for you, who can help navigate you as you mold yourself into the true identity that you are. And last but not least, you must stay optimistic. You must try to always do your best every day, because no matter how many agreements we set and no matter how much intentionality we put in place, it can be hard. The other day, I was just devastated. The day was completely broken, my friends. And it was one thing after the next. And I was just like, wow, what is going on with this day? Now, I want to give you a wise word of encouragement here as I finally close out. The next day after, an incredible blessing began to reveal itself. I'm having a moment. Do not be discouraged, my friends, when the day feels like it's broken, because sometimes things need to be broken or appear that way to pull the strength and character out of you to be ready for the massive blessing that is waiting for you on the other side. And I want you to anchor in your faith of God. And when it's there, nothing will ever be able to come against you. All things work to the good. Greater is the good in you. There is nothing impossible. There is nothing impossible with God. There is nothing impossible with God on your side. And if God be for you, who could be against you? Do you understand me today, my friends? So when the day seems to be falling apart or you're questioning your identity, I want you to go to these practices. I want you to deepen in, because this happens in the journey of our life. Identity crisis is real. Identity trauma is real, but you can deepen into who you really are. That intrinsic value, that well of wealth, that abundant, everlasting, never-ending, ever-flowing, eternal spirit, the true essence of who you are. And I know you can do it. Now today, I want you to begin to step in. Thanks everyone for listening today. I hope you received a lot out of that episode and are feeling energized and ready for whatever lies ahead. If you did enjoy it, I'd appreciate it if you'd share it out. Thank you in advance for doing so. Please also connect with me on social media, Instagram, LinkedIn, Facebook, Natasha M. Palumbo. And until next time, be encouraged, be empowered, and as always, be well.